Hey y'all, this is Charlie Harrison with the Bluefield Group. Today's guest is Zach Kennedy with Movement Mortgage, and we're going to be talking about their unique process and mission. So Movement Mortgage, we were just talking about, has now moved up to #1 in the state of South Carolina for mortgage lenders. How did y'all do it?
Yeah, so as you can imagine, Charlie, Movement was pretty excited 2 years ago when we saw that we had passed up Wells Fargo as the #1 mortgage lender in South Carolina.
Crazy.
We're kind of the underdogs, kind of the small lender, passing up the big dogs. So, I kind of want to kind of back up and start with kind of where our process came from.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, it kind of starts with how the industry normally works. So it kind of started with one really basic concept. The mortgage industry is regulated more heavily right now than it really ever has been.
Yeah.
Right? It's a lot of rules and regulations, a lot of documents that you need and stuff like that that maybe didn't exist 10 years ago. So. However, there's not a lot of rules and regulations when it comes to what has to be verified before a loan officer issues a pre-qualification letter.
Really?
So what typically happens is, believe it or not, loan officers normally decide for themselves what has to be looked at up front. So too often, it leaves people scrambling for documents and all this stuff last minute, instead of kind of knowing that stuff up front. It's happening toward the end.
It's pre-qualification.
Yeah.
What does that mean for y'all's clients?
Yeah, so typically, pre-qualification, really, honestly, it's not really defined very well. Like I said, because there's not a lot of regulation to say what someone has to look at before they give you that pre-qualification letter. It can vary a bit. So typically, a loan officer is going to pull credit. They definitely want to see that, and then they're going to look at your application and look for information about things like your employment history and how much money you have in your bank account and things of that sort, right? And then they're going to look at all that information and decide what loan program they think is going to work best for you, and then they're going to issue you a pre-qualification letter. Okay, so the person gets the pre-qualification letter, and they're super excited,
Ready to go.
Because boom, they've been approved, right? They have the letter, so they come to you. Hopefully they come to you, the real estate agent, right? And they're excited because hey, I've got my letter. So you go and look for a house, find the house that you really, really like, negotiate the price, and then now you're extra super excited because now you're under contract. Right, so now it's getting real. It's kind of concrete. You're moving forward in the process. So, as a real estate agent, the first thing that's going to happen after you go under contract is you're going to order home inspection. Right, it's kind of the first step. Home inspection is going to cost anywhere between $300 to $500, depending on what's ordered and so forth. Okay, so. You're kind of putting this package together as a loan officer, and it's really all the other mortgage lenders and banks out there. It's at this point that they're going to actually ask for all your other documentation, your W-2s and your tax returns and your bank statements and all the other stuff that they need for this package, right? So they're going to package up, and sometimes, and you can probably speak on this as a real estate agent, they've already actually done the appraisal as well at this point. Yep. So that's another $500 or so. So they get this package together and they send it to an underwriter for approval, okay? Because an underwriter is the only person who can actually approve a loan.
That's right.
Right.
Not the loan officer.
Not the loan officer. I wish we had that special stamp, but unfortunately, we've got to send it to an underwriter. And sometimes, the underwriter gets that package, and what they're going to do is they're going to look at, the application, all the documentation, and sometimes they don't agree with the loan officer's best guess.
The pre-qualification up front, yeah.
Right, so they look at it and they go, there's a problem here. So that's going to cause one of two things. Is they're going to either, like I said before, be asking the borrower, to kind of scramble around and get all this extra documentation right at the end, or they're going to flat out deny the loan and turn it down.
And they lose the costs up front for the appraisal, the inspections.
Exactly.
All those things have to be paid for.
Exactly.
So that the deal goes through or not, unfortunately.
Right. So, either way, even if they're restructuring the loan and asking for all the extra documentation and stuff, your borrower, your customer, is kind of freaked out. They're a little stressed, especially in the case that the loan gets denied, these people have already maybe, told all their friends and family, they're buying this house and, put pictures on social media and all this stuff. And all of a sudden, there's a problem.
Yeah.
So Movement Mortgage's leadership didn't agree with this process. In fact, they felt pretty strongly about it. So what they did is they made one minor adjustment to the process,
Okay.
and it kind of changed everything. And what that is we moved the underwriting portion up to the front.
Really?
Right. Yeah. So
Starting with the
it sounds like a no-brainer, right?
Yeah, starting with the underwriting first to make sure we can even get to
Right.
the closing table.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
there's almost no other lenders that do it. So what we do is we actually get all that stuff up front. We send it to the underwriter for an actual approval, so that every borrower knows that they have a fully underwritten approval, not just a loan officer's best guess, right? So that when they go and make an offer, it's actually on something a little bit more concrete. And it also puts you in kind of a little bit of a interesting negotiating situation, right? I know that we're in the Greenville market here, so how often are you have a client, they're making an offer on a house, and there are how many other offers?
5, 10, sometimes 20 if it's under 150,000, and that really does make a difference if it comes down to you or a few other people having that true pre-approval versus a pre-qualification letter. Yours is going to stand out,
right?
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've actually had clients to where they're one of multiple offers, and they may not have the highest offer, but they end up getting the house, and it's for a couple reasons. Well, one, because we underwrite up front, we can close faster than any of the big box banks or other mortgage lenders, because we're underwriting up front. The process is just much quicker. Sometimes, typically as fast as 2 weeks in most cases. We can close.
Really?
Yeah, from application to closing, can be as quick as 2 weeks. So it's a huge advantage when you have those multiple offer situations, because a lot of sellers, we got to remember they're not just selling a house. If they're selling a house, that means they're also moving, right? So I know that it's pretty often that you have somebody selling a house, but then you also get them as a client because they're going to buy a house
on the exact same time. Yeah, I've got some clients now who were selling one house and buying the next house on the same day, and so it's crucial that the buying piece, they need that equity to get to the other side and purchase their next home.
Yeah.
And you want to be 100% sure that this is going to close.
You're right. Yeah, and because it's so competitive, the seller may have their eye on a house, and they're a little bit afraid that maybe that house is going to slip away. So if you can close that much quicker, you're definitely going to have an advantage with your offer. And not only that, the other thing that is something that I do personally is I pick up the phone and I call the listing agent and explain to them that you have a fully underwritten approval, not just some pre-qual letter, some loan officer's best guess. It's actually already been through underwriting and has that stamp on it. So it's really strong.
So I know another unique process of Movement Mortgage is the community. How heavily y'all are involved in the community, I think since 2008 when y'all started?
Yeah. So, community involvement is really in the DNA of who we are. It's something that's been important to us from day one, like you said, 2008. We are a faith-based mortgage company, which I know a lot of people are thinking, what's a faith-based mortgage?
That? Yeah.
But that's really expressed in just kind of our corporate culture and how we interact with the community. From things like, 100% of our corporate profits go back into the community, which is a lot of people don't know that. Yeah,
that's incredible. I did not know that.
Yeah. So. And we go on mission trips corporately. I think it's like once a month. Employees go together to serve in other nations and places in need and that sort of thing. Even the trips we take as awards, within the company. Sometimes they have awards for people where it's like, hey, you get to go to Cozumel, Mexico.
President's Club, yep.
That sort of thing, right? And even when we go on those, we partner with different organizations to serve in those areas. So even when we're there as an award, like this past one in Cozumel, Mexico, we partnered with an organization that gives shoes to third world nations. So they actually did like a whole foot washing sort of thing for the local residents there, and gave them new shoes, and that's the sorts of things that we really value.
That's incredible.
Yeah, if you look at our mission statement on our website, anywhere that you see our mission statement, the first thing that it says is, we exist to love and value people. That's, at the top of our priority list. It's God, family, work, and at the very bottom of our priority list, if you look as a company, the very last thing on the list is, and profit matters. Because it does, we have to make a profit. We have
Stay
to
in business.
we have to run a business,
Definitely.
But ultimately it's to support the mission of everything else that we're doing, from water drives to all the things that we're involved in. So,
Zach, any lasting thoughts?
yeah, so, bottom line, no one likes last minute surprises. And our process virtually eliminates those surprises by just moving the underwriting portion to the front of the process, get that file in front of the decision maker as soon as possible. And that's really what's been monumental in making us so popular with both agents, real estate agents, and also buyers. And truly what's gotten us to be the #1 mortgage lender in South Carolina. So
That's great. Well, how can we best get in contact with you?
yeah, so obviously online, movement.com, or if you want to find me specifically, movement.com/Zachary.Kennedy, or if you prefer social media, Instagram and Facebook, Zach Kennedy Loans is the best way to find me. So
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming. Appreciate your time.
yes, sir.
If y'all have any questions or any recommendations for what we should do for our next video, our contact information is below. Again, thank y'all for watching, and we'll see you next time.